Hello, it's Toaster Party, and today I'm going to be talking about what my picks are for the top 5 best Dominaria United cards for CEDH. So Dominaria United is a set that's going to be very powerful for 60 card constructed formats, but how does that really translate over to the 100 card format? Well, have no fear, because there are quite a few cards that are still powerful enough to see CEDH play. Starting off with number 5, Tailswipe. This is a 1 mana instant speed removal spell in mono green, which reads, choose target creature you control and target creature you don't control, and if you cast the spell during your main phase, the creature you control gets +1/+1 until end of turn, then those creatures fight each other. This adds additional interaction to mono green, a color that traditionally struggles with creature-related interaction. Other effects that have existed in the past like this were either all sorcery speed, 2 mana, or had some form of downside to be instant speed 1 mana removal. So this is a strict upgrade for those kind of decks. So you'll probably want to play this in like Selvala, Marwyn, Yasan. It's a good card for those, but probably nowhere else. But let's move on now to number 4, Terrasunder. Another green removal spell, but this one is more exile-based removal for artifacts and enchantments. But what's really interesting about this card is that it has the additional upside of being able to be modal by also being able to be removal for any non-land permanent type should the need arise. So while it's sort of mediocre artifact and enchantment removal, the additional upside of being able to be creature or possibly planeswalker removal could also be good enough to make this see play. It's probably not good enough for every single deck in these colors, but it's probably good enough for Golgari and Jund, because those colors traditionally struggle to remove certain permanent types. But let's move on now to number 3, Plaza of Heroes. This is a rare land that normally taps for colorless, but also it can be used to add 1 mana of any color to spend this to cast a legendary spell. And also you can tap it to add 1 mana of any color among legendary permanents you control. And finally, you can pay 3 generic and tap it to exile this card to target a legendary creature, and that creature gets hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. So this isn't a rare land that's going to see play in every single deck because it's not always going to be able to do what you want it to, but it's a good land specifically for those very hard to cast commanders like Garth One-Eye, the First Sliver, or Niv-Mizzet Reborn, because those colors that you need to cast those spells are very restrictive. That's why it's only at number 3, because none of those are really tier 1 commanders. Most of them aren't even tier 2, but it helps give a little bit of boost to those kind of decks that really needed a bit more of a push. But let's move on now to number 2, Micromancer. So this card may look like a worse version of Spellseeker. You'd be right, but it's still a 1-card win condition, albeit with what I've thought of so far, it's a bit of a slow, telegraphed, and mana-intensive win con. The line that first popped into my head is that cast Micromancer, tutor Ephemerate, Ephemerate the Micromancer, tutor Vampiric Tutor, on the rebound of the Ephemerate, tutor Consultation, before the draw step, Vampiric for Thoracle, then you can cast the Thoracle with the trigger on the stack, cast the Consultation, naming you are already dead, and you have won the game. But aside from that win con line, Micromancer is still a more expensive and slightly worse Spellseeker, but that doesn't change the fact that Spellseeker is incredibly powerful. But the place that I feel like this is going to see the most play is in decks that can abuse flickering, stuff like Amanatu that can also blink for interaction so that that one win con line isn't so win more, so that you have a bit of protection for your win attempt. But aside from that, let's move on to number 1, Temporary Lockdown. So, Temporary Lockdown is a 3-mana enchantment that, when it enters the battlefield, it exiles each non-land permanent with mana value 2 or less until this leaves the field. 2 mana or less hits pretty much every single mana rock in CEDH, hits pretty much every single mana dork in CEDH. You can blink it to remove even more permanents, can be tutored off Zur, and also it gets rid of most Tymna adjacent creatures. So all in all, this is an incredibly powerful board nuke type effect that is specifically good with some of the options that you have in CEDH. And that's why it's my pick for the #1 card from Dominaria United for CEDH. Well, thank you all for watching. Hope you leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and I hope you all have an excellent day.